Welcome to the C Analysis podcast. I'm your host, Chaz Nuttycombe, the director of C Analysis. Today we have a special episode, a double feature. We are going to be going over the GOP contest coming up, the convention on Saturday, May 8th, as well as going over on what my thoughts are on the latest Democratic debates for the statewide contest here in Virginia. That's Virginia Attorney General, and that is Virginia Governor. The first Democratic debate between Delegate Jay Jones and Attorney General Mark Herring, and the second Democratic debate between the five candidates vying for governor. That's Terry McAuliffe, Jennifer Carroll Foy, Jennifer McClellan, Justin Fairfax, and Lee Carter. But first, we are going to go over the GOP contest, and we're going to start with the convention here. I'm joined by Matt Colt Hall once again. He is a GOP politico down in Southwest Virginia. I believe you hail from Patrick County, if I'm correct, Matt.
Well, I will say my grandmother's born and raised Patrick County, but I was born in Carroll, so
right.
You're close, but it's okay.
You are also a writer for the Virginia Star, owned by John Fredericks, and I really appreciate your perspectives on these races, on these contests. Let's talk about the convention on Saturday. How it works is a little bit unique. So it is not run by the Commonwealth of Virginia, unlike the June primaries that are going on, and that is for 5 House of Delegates contest for the Republicans, more House Delegates contest for the Democrats, and obviously the statewide contest. These are all primaries going on June 8th. So what is going on is it is being run by the state party, the Virginia GOP, and you have ranked choice voting for people who have registered as delegates. I believe the number is 53,000. You also have weighted votes by locality, depending on how the locality, obviously population, but also how it voted in the last presidential election. Matt, can you tell us a little bit more about the convention process and especially the weighted votes?
This is a source of major frustration because it's basically, now granted, it makes it a little more level playing field, but it's also the most screwy thing you'll ever deal with. Basically, for example, places like my dear friend Terry Kilgore, who's in the House of Delegates, hails from Scott County. Now, Scott County is a very, very, very small county with a very low delegate count. And to be honest, the delegates will probably, you might get 10 or 15 delegates from Scott County. But, keyword but, because they're so Republican, they will get a ton more delegate votes. I'll never forget a couple years ago, we were at the state convention. Terry and his son Kyle were at the convention. They were the only delegates from Scott County, and somebody was running them down because they needed to get their votes because it counted for 75 delegate votes in that convention. So like 2 people were 75 votes because, yes, they were smaller in population, but they hold a much larger percentage of the Republican vote. So that's it. Weighted votes are a mess. Let me explain what the process will be. What you will do is first of all, you had to register to be a delegate to the convention, meaning you had to sign a piece of paper with your name, address, telephone number, email, and you had to turn that into your party unit committee chair. There was much debate on how many delegates were going to be allowed. And finally, after the rules were set, you could have as many delegates as possible to a party location. There are 39 polling locations across the Commonwealth. The farthest west polling location is Norton, Virginia, which is in Wise County. For those of you who don't know, Norton is closer to 8 state capitals than it is Richmond. On the eastern side, you are the most furthest east is Tangier Island, I do believe. And there may
You're telling me they have a polling location on Tangier?
I am telling you, they have a polling location on Tangier Island
That is
because
amazing.
there is a state central committee member from the Eastern Shore, and she said, "I'm not going to disenfranchise the voters of Tangier because for them to have to come to the mainland to vote in a convention is almost impossible." For those of you who are unfamiliar, Tangier is a small island in the middle of the Chesapeake Bay. It has a small population of maybe like 500 or 600 people, but they have a beautiful island and a beautiful way of life. But their state central member said, "I will not disenfranchise my people. I'm going to get Tangier a polling location." And sure enough, there will be a polling location on an island in the middle of the Chesapeake Bay. So no matter if you're in Norton or Tangier or anywhere at one of these 39 polling locations, you will pull up. And so some places will be drive through, and I imagine that some other places will be just walk up. That was kind of left to everybody to their own devices kind of thing. But basically what you'll do is you'll be registered by someone. They'll check your identification. I know that Virginia doesn't require that at the moment, but Republicans are sticklers. They want to check your ID. You'll present your valid Virginia driver's license. After you presented your driver's license, you will be checked off the list. Then you will go vote. Now, this is a ranked choice ballot, meaning that you will rank your candidates for governor 1 through 7, your lieutenant governor candidates 1 through 6, and you will rank your attorney general candidates 1 through 4. Once you're done with those rankings, you will put your ballot in a box. The convention goes from 9 to 4. At 4 p.m., they will close the polling location. Once the poll is closed, the tellers and the registration folks will stay behind. They will take the ballots, secure them in locked boxes. They will be escorted, I believe, by armed guard and RPV couriers from their polling location to Richmond. Now, let me be very clear, that's going to take some time. Like I said, Norton is closer to 8 state capitals than it is Richmond, and Tangier Island's in the middle of the Chesapeake Bay. So it's going to take some time to get ballots to Richmond. Those ballots will be transported to Richmond. And from what I hear through the grapevine, there's going to be lawyers and candidate representatives watching those ballots from the moment they leave the polling location till they get to the Richmond Marriott Ballroom. The Richmond Marriott Ballroom is going to be where the votes are counted. They will be under armed guard and video camera the entire time. When they are brought in, they will be hand counted. They will count all 40 plus thousand ballots. And if there are 50,000 ballots, they'll still count them. They will count every single ballot by hand, meaning that they will count them county by county using what's called the Australian method of ranked choice voting. Chaz, we're going to get real nerdy here. Hold on to your hat. They're doing the Australian counting method, meaning that you will basically put everybody in piles based on county. So, for example, let's just say, we've got, I'm thinking Eastern Shore this morning. Let's say Accomack County. And Accomack County is the Attorney General's race. And Leslie Haley gets 50 votes. Number one, Chuck Smith gets 25 votes. Jason Miyares gets 10 votes. And Jack White gets 5 votes. Just a hypothetical. Well, then they eliminate all of Jack White's votes in Accomack County, and Jack White's number 2s then go to the person that they put as number 2 on the ballot. And you go so on and so forth until you get to 50% plus 1 in those races. So they will start counting those ballots at 1 p.m. on Sunday on Mother's Day. Once those ballots are starting to count, they will count them. From what I'm hearing through the grapevine, there will be, hopefully a decision on the Attorney General's race by Monday-ish. A decision on the Lieutenant Governor's race by like Tuesday, Wednesday. And worst case scenario, I'm hearing Thursday, maybe Friday for governor, which means all of us politicos are going to be a frantic mess. We're probably going to have to drink ourselves to death or take a nerve pill for
And so they're going to be counting their pretty much every day until they get their nominees.
Correct. It's very frustrating because it's going to take a long time. There is no reason that any journalist should do a election night show, period. I mean, you can do one, but there's going to be no results. There's going to be nothing to talk about. I mean, it's like, well, the ballots are being transported. We saw some people for this person and we saw some people for that person, but there's no scientific way to say, I know for a fact that, say, Sergio De La Pena got 500 votes because it's ranked choice. And this is indicative of the race. We have no idea who the front runner is for governor. We have no idea who the front runner is for lieutenant governor. Attorney General is pretty cut and dry at this point. Probably going to be Miyares. And that may not even be true. But we don't know what's going to happen on Saturday. As I like to tell people, everybody's asking me to look into my crystal ball. My crystal ball's got pond water in it. I couldn't tell you what's going to happen. Look, if you're asking me to make a prediction or an endorsement or anything like that, hell, I can't tell you what's going to happen.
Not for none of these races. Yeah, governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general. I want to ask you about that. Who do you think is? Because I think based on the folk I'm talking to, I'm not saying Pete Snyder is a sure thing, but I know it's between him and Youngkin, most likely. And I think Pete Snyder has the edge. Do you think you would agree with that?
I think it's so razor close that I can't tell. I have said publicly, so this is not news to anyone, that it is in fact a two-person race between Snyder and Youngkin. Cox is playing, and I would almost hedge and say it's a three-person race with Cox in it.
I wouldn't count out Amanda
about Kirk.
I wouldn't count out Amanda Chase.
Now, here's the thing, though, and I'm just going to tell you, Amanda I'm going to tell you what. Every bit of patience I had with her brandishing a firearm, I just, I'm going to pray for the Lord to give me patience this morning. I don't think it's there for Amanda. Kirk is playing an interesting, he's got an interesting strategy of trying to be everybody's number two vote. And that might work in his favor. He's telling every delegate in the state, look, if I can't get you on round one, I'd like to have you on number two, which is a great strategy because, of course, you want all your one votes. You want every single one vote. But when you get to the number two, that's where we start playing with gasoline and matches, because once you get to start playing with number two votes, and we could sit here till the cows come home and debate whose number twos are going where. What I will say is, for anyone listening, there is no clear front runner, and the margins in the top three are getting very tight. Now, Amanda's going to have about 20% of the electorate. Let's just be real. She might have about 15-20%. But
20% is pretty high.
Yeah. I would say with the vote she's going to have, she might have.
Wait. Let me clarify. Are you saying that she'll have 20% of the electorate on the first round?
Yes. So here's what I would say: probably 15 to 20, in just my educated guess. However, what's going to happen is these folks are going to start dropping off. Now, I will tell you that Duran, Johnson, and De La Pena is running a really good race. Can I say that? If the De La Pena campaign is listening, you guys are running a great race. I really like the Colonel as a person. He brings good ideas to the table. I'm not going to endorse anybody in this race. I'm just saying that Colonel De La Pena is a good guy, and he's running a good race. And Peter Duran's running a good race. My sheriff, Octavia Johnson, I have no idea what she's doing because she's raised $1,000 to run for governor. But when those people start dropping off, the Octavias, the Peter Durans, the Sergio De La Pena, that's where we start cooking with gasoline and matches, because those then get transferred over to those delegates. And what's going to happen is, where do those delegates go? Now, a lot of people have speculated, I might be one of them, that Amanda will not try to get her delegates to vote for Pete Snyder. There is some animosity there. It's been documented in the Richmond Times-Dispatch. It's been documented in me.
She said that she would run as an independent if Pete Snyder is the nominee.
Correct. And so there's some animosity there. I would imagine that Amanda will probably not let her delegates go to Snyder. Kirk, I don't know, but based on who they are, based on the type of voter that's a Kirk Cox voter, I would imagine most of them would go to Youngkin, maybe. That's just purely speculation. I will say that, I have no idea who's the second choice of Snyder voters. Youngkin voters, probably Cox, maybe Snyder, or I don't know. I have no idea. That's what people don't understand. Usually you can tell with these things. We're in uncharted territory. We've never done an unassembled convention of this size. We have never done ranked choice voting as Republicans. We have never done any of this. And so we don't know where this is going to happen.
Okay. Well, what about the lieutenant governor race then? That is a race that is even more open than the governor race, I would say.
Oh my gosh, that one. There's 3 that are punching hard. I would say 4, because Lance Allen is running a really good race. Lance Allen, I would say, is punching above his weight. He's really working hard, and just a hustle is there. When I say somebody's got hustle, I mean, they'll show up to a committee meeting with 10 people, and then they'll go to the next one with 10 people, and the next one with 10 people. We used to have a joke when Rob Bell ran for attorney general. If 2 Republicans got together in a phone book, Rob Bell would appear magically with a pocket constitution talking about the Second Amendment. I would say Glenn Davis is working tremendously hard. Winsome Sears is just coming out of nowhere. Like, we didn't think she'd be a factor, and then all of a sudden she is a huge factor in this race.
She's got the endorsement of Senator Amanda Chase. Is Chase working to make sure that the people that are ranking her first or second, but especially first, that they are going and having Sears in that top tier for them in the lieutenant governor race?
I have not heard that from the Chase campaign. What I will tell you is that Amanda Chase, Peter Duran, and Octavia Johnson, so 3 out of the 7 governor's candidates, have endorsed Winsome Sears. So meaning, I think that means is that Sears has got some momentum in her corner. She's also, I'm not going to endorse Winsome, but I'm going to say that she has a really good campaign manager in Andrew Leppert. Andrew is a Trump, Wisconsin alum, and just a whiz kid smart. He's also a Ford Mustang guy, so we honestly get along really well because we're both Mustang guys. But at the same time, Andrew's just a smart young kid. Like, you can tell, as they said in Hamilton, there's a mind at work with Leppert, and he's very smart, very talented. I'm a big fan of his. And any time in the LG race, if you want a saucy tweet, you just go, "Hey Andrew, what you think?" But that race, I'll tell you the other thing. Glenn Davis's team, excellent group of people. I really love Davis's team. Tim Hugo. I want to tell a funny story about Tim Hugo. We did your podcast in probably 1st of April. About a month ago. And I kind of kicked Tim in the butt a little bit. He calls me
about not coming far enough out to Southwest Virginia, I think you said.
Yeah. And so he called me about 3 hours later, and he's like, "Man, why'd you kick my butt? Like, why'd you kick my butt in this podcast?" I said, "Well, here, brother, you got to get out here." And he's getting out here, and he's sending the mail, and he's getting active. And so that one, I couldn't tell you. That one, I have no idea where it's going or what's going on. I don't. I have no clue. None. Zero. None. Zilch. I have no idea where the lieutenant governor's race is going.
That's
And
fair.
yeah, I have no idea where the governor's race is, other than I know like where the top 3 or 4 is. The lieutenant governor's race, your guess is as good as mine.
And then Attorney General, do you think it's a lock for Mieres, or do you think there's an opportunity here for one of these other candidates to break through?
Something drastic would have to happen. Basically, if anyone's read my reporting at the Virginia Star, Jack White was found to give money to the Biden Victory Fund and the Biden Action Fund 90 days before he announced his campaign for Attorney General as a Republican. And that pretty much that just, you can't understand how angry voters are with Biden Harris in the Republican sphere. So I think that ship sailed. Chuck Smith is still playing a role. Leslie Haley is still she's still running a race. And Jason's got a race going. What I will say is that I see it more as a one ballot race.
Let's tell you what. Why don't you put it in the classic prognosticator terms, with stuff like Cook Political, Crystal Ball, and whatnot, and obviously C analysis. Toss up, tilt, lean, likely, safe, or solid. What would you say?
I would say toss up for governor, lieutenant governor. Attorney General is very slightly lean, Mieres, but
very slightly lean. You don't think it's a lock?
Let me explain why. Jason and I are friends. Don't get me wrong. However, we are in uncharted territory. We don't know what we're walking into Saturday. And what I mean by that is the Youngkin campaign, the Snyder campaign, the Amanda Chase campaign, and the Cox campaign a little bit have basically went into these communities, paid door knockers to knock on doors, get pre-files, and then leave. And so my question is, if they show up for governor, do they have any idea who the LG and AG candidates are? They might have seen Tucker Carlson with Glenn Youngkin last night, or they might have seen Pete Snyder on Fox when he was representing the Trump campaign, or the times he's come on when he's running for governor. But do they know who Winsome Sears is, or Jason Mieres, or Leslie Haley? And so the question remains, we don't know who's showing up to this thing. I mean, that's terrible to say, but this is not. You've got to get out of that primary electorate head, and you've got to get out of that convention electorate head. You've got a hybrid of, there are some people who would probably only vote in primary, and there's some people who would, be convention goers. That's the reason why we cannot lock or prognosticate this, because there's no way to tell you how that's going to work.
I think if they don't get Mieres in, I think that really helps, unless the Democrats nominate Herring, because I think Herring is a weaker candidate than Jay Jones, given Herring's scandal. And honestly, he does not have a good campaign. Herring does not have a good campaign right now.
I see.
He's got name recognition. That's why he's up in the polls. But Jay Jones has really gained a lot of momentum, and he's going to outspend Mark Herring, it looks like. But so I don't think any of the other candidates really are as strong as Mieres, because you're talking about a delegate who, I mean, he's an overperformer in Virginia Beach. He doesn't just overperform slightly. He overperforms by double digits compared to how his district votes at the top of the ballot. Now, I will say that the Democrats don't really recruit anybody strong against him, but regardless, I think he's their best bet. And if Jay Jones is the nominee for the Democrats and they don't nominate Mieres, honestly, I see that race going to from lean Democrat to likely Democrat.
Well, and what I will say is that, Jason's a friend of mine, and obviously I like his race. I love Clark Kilgore, who's running that. Clark is Jerry Kilgore's son. The Kilgores are friends. They're more like family to me. And I want to make that clear. I love the Kilgores. I bleed and die for that family. Case closed, end of story. Love the Kilgores. But what I'll say is the problem with all this, and I know that everybody listening is like, Matt, just make a damn prediction. And I'm like, I'm sorry, folks. I can't do that in good faith because I don't want to give some campaign some momentum because I said something and then they go into the week and they're like, oh, we didn't do it, because we don't know who this electorate is. There is no way to predict who's showing up on Saturday. There are 53,000 delegates at polling locations across the Commonwealth, and we just don't know who's showing up because it's different between a convention model person. You know, your usual person who attends a convention has to commit to a weekend in Richmond. They have to get a hotel room or they have to ride a bus there. They spend all weekend in Richmond, or they ride a bus very early in the morning. They get to Richmond, they vote for 10 hours, and then they leave. That excludes a lot of people, working people, elderly, military, blah, 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 blah. Now they can vote in their community. For example, my polling location for the unassembled convention is the Salem Civic Center. That is about a 15-minute drive from my house. My parents have to drive a little farther to be convention delegates. By the way, can we just, funny aside, I told all these statewides, I was like, look, I can't endorse anybody right now because, you know, writing at the Star. But I said, my mom is up for grabs. Kirk Cox, Glenn Youngkin, Lance Allen, Tim Hugo, and Jason Miyares have all called my mom and asked for her vote. God love my mama. Apparently, she let Glenn Youngkin go to voicemail. Oh my goodness. But you know, this is where we're at. Is like we don't know where this is going to be. Now, Snyder and Youngkin, it's interesting. Their campaigns right now are almost like the dueling banjos. For those of you from Appalachia know what I'm talking about with dueling banjos. They're basically fighting each other with public rallies to see who gets the bigger crowd and who can get more delegates there. As of this morning, Youngkin got the endorsement of Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt, and he has the endorsement of Ted Cruz. Cruz is coming to campaign with him. We're recording on Wednesday, so we're going to see Senator Cruz here in Roanoke. Today, he'll be in Roanoke, Bedford, and Lynchburg. And then tomorrow, Senator Cruz will be in Danville, Chesterfield, Virginia Beach with Youngkin. On the other hand, Snyder is doing his conservative outlaw tour. He's got Sarah Sanders, Sheriff Clark, Ken Cuccinelli's getting very invested in Snyder's race. You know, and so there's a compare and contrast between Youngkin's getting national political figures and national political figures, and Snyder's getting national political figures. And so it's interesting that they're playing dueling rallies right now. Kirk Cox is getting the more local electeds to come rally for him. I have no idea what Amanda's doing because, again, she got kicked off Facebook, so we can't track where she's going, other than when she decides to brandish a firearm on a Zoom call, which, yeah.
All right. Matt Colt Hall, thank you so much for coming on. We will be right back after a word from our sponsor, and we will talk about I'll talk about the Democratic debates for Attorney General and Governor. Stick with us.
Listen, political polling has a bad name, and for good reason. I mean, who even answers their phone for an unknown number anymore? And therein lies the problem. Signal is the #1 most accurate Republican polling firm in the nation because they do things differently. Polling reimagined, using text messages, email, online, and some phone calls. We reach all the voters that matter to gather their opinions, which creates the most accurate polling possible. Add that on top of other innovations like emotive analysis, which allows you to know what voters are feeling, not just thinking, and working with Signal will give your Republican campaign a significant edge. Find out more. If you're curious, type cygn.al. That's cygn.al. Or just look at the campaign finance disclosures of winning campaigns around the country from federal to state legislature. You'll find us there too. Signal, polling reimagined.
And welcome back. I want to talk a little bit about the primary debates between the Democrats here in Virginia. We had the first Democratic debate for Attorney General, as well as the second Democratic debate for Virginia Governor between the Democrats this week. First, I want to talk a bit about the Attorney General primary. This happened on Wednesday, May 5th. The Attorney General primary, for those who do not know, is between incumbent Mark Herring. He's a former state senator from Loudoun. He was first elected in 2013 very narrowly, defeating State Senator Mark Obenshain, as well as Delegate Jay Jones from Norfolk. Jones is trying to oust Herring. I think that if Jones does become the nominee, I think it's good for the Democrats because that ensures that there will be regional diversity on the ticket, because McAuliffe is very likely going to be a shoo-in here soon enough. And then there's a pretty decent chance that Hala Ayala may beat Sam Rasool for the lieutenant governor nomination. You also have Sean Perryman, who may have a shot at the nomination. And then you do have Andrea McClellan. I would say McClellan and Perryman for lieutenant governor are in about the same tier. And then I think Ayala and Rasool are in the first tier. Currently, I don't know it for sure. We'll have to have some more polling on that, because I think Hala Ayala is going to shoot up in the polls here a little bit now that she's getting all these endorsements and support. Anyways, let's talk more about the debate itself. I think that Herring didn't fumble on retorts, but he didn't slam back either. He didn't do great. He didn't do poorly. He just did all right. Jay Jones remained on the offensive throughout the entire thing, and Herring would have some strong comebacks, always, trying to correct the record in his view. One interesting response was a question on ideology. Jones was asked whether he was progressive, more progressive than Herring, I think, exactly, and how he would characterize his opponent's ideology. And Jones didn't use terms like moderate, progressive, conservative. He simply said that Herring is out of touch with the Virginia today, and he himself, Jones, is in touch with the Virginia today in 2021, which I think is smart, because Jones needs to do well with especially black Virginian voters, who are, for the most part, describe themselves as moderates and conservatives, though they are reliably Democratic. And not only this, but when you are running in a statewide primary, in a one-on-one in Virginia, I think it's best that you don't characterize yourself as any sort of ideology. You let the voters decide how they perceive you, because you can also win over groups of all sorts. You can win progressives, you can win moderates, you can win the conservative Democrats who are voting in the primary. I think that is the strategy that Jones is playing here. You need to let the voters decide your ideology and how they perceive you. That is a very smart strategy that I think he's doing. But all in all, the electorate, the Democratic primary electorate in Virginia, is not really progressive. You can look at the 2017 gubernatorial primary, you can look at the 2016 presidential primary, 2021 presidential primary. This isn't just really a progressive state in terms of its Democratic primary electorate statewide. There are some parts that are definitely progressive. Blacksburg, Charlottesville, some parts in Northern Virginia, the western part of Richmond City. There are definitely some pockets for progressivism in terms of
the type of progressive that is trying to oust the more center part of the Democratic Party. So I think it was smart that Jones didn't use ideological terms. Jones also, later in the debate, brought up Herring's blackface scandal, which surprised me, given that Jones has accepted the endorsement from Governor Northam, who was the first domino to fall in the 2019 scandals, which Democrats in Virginia still have nightmares about. Given that he had his own blackface scandal, Jones was later asked about this flip-flop on calling for Northam to resign, and to which he only retorted with citing Northam's progressive accomplishments. And then afterwards, Herring got to talk about it and said he was just pretty much listing off his endorsements. So neither of them really answered the question. They both dodged it. Herring was making the electoral argument for his candidacy in this debate, saying that if you want to boost your chances of keeping the office, keep the incumbent. I don't think that's the situation in here, though. I think that if Democrats can turn the page from February 2019 in any shape, way, and form, I think that really benefits them. I am also just not really impressed with the campaign that Herring has run. You know, it's funny. I was going through my Twitter feed, my home feed, and I saw Northam thanking someone for their vote. I go to the voters page who posted, themselves voting for Herring, and it was his deputy campaign manager. I don't think I've ever seen someone post thanking someone from their vote from their own deputy CM. And I think that may be the state of the Herring campaign. I mean, look, I will say, though, that Herring has so far throughout the total time of the campaign, he's raised more money than Jay Jones, but not by a whole lot. I think by less than $500,000. And Jay Jones is going to get a lot of money from Michael Bills. He already has, and from Clean Virginia. And I think he's really going to be able to compete with Herring in Northern Virginia, not Loudoun. Herring will win Loudoun County. You can bet your bottom dollar on that. If he is losing Loudoun County, he is getting destroyed. That's his home turf. But I think Jay Jones can really pick out some pockets from Northern Virginia and then really run the table on him in Hampton Roads, possibly Richmond. I'm not sure what the rural areas are going to do. So let's talk about the governor debate now. I think that is a good summary, and I've got all my thoughts out for the AG primary, where it stands, and how I thought of the debate. I think McAuliffe did well in this debate. I think that he expected the attacks from Carol Foy. Of course, Carol Foy's been swinging at McAuliffe since the day she got in this race. The attack that he was most well prepared for was when Carol Foy was attacking him on saying that he would always side with the police. McAuliffe said this in 2015 or 2016. And McAuliffe said that he was referring to license plate readers for police, saying that he will side with them on keeping them to help capture murderers. I would like to note, though, that this retort to Carol Foy's attack came within the same answer of him dodging the question on qualified immunity. But anyway, Carol Foy kept up the attacks on McAuliffe. Delegate Lee Carter would attack as well. Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax and State Senator McClellan, unless I missed something here, didn't really attack McAuliffe in this debate, at least by name. Unlike last time, they both attacked McAuliffe once or twice. Fairfax had the oddest attack on McAuliffe in the last debate. For those who watched it, Justin Fairfax said that Terry McAuliffe was treating him like Emmett Till and George Floyd, and that sure did get him trending on social media, but not in the way you want to be trending. But anyway, look, Carol Foy needed an ace up her sleeve tonight to prevent Terry McAuliffe from being the nominee. Something like an astonishing takedown of him that would go viral. Again, the example I like to use is when Kamala Harris just absolutely destroyed Joe Biden in the first Democratic primary debate for the presidential primary in summer of 2019. Of course, that attack really should have been used for a later point. She dropped out before the primary. You just can't keep that momentum going for more than half a year. But anyway, that didn't happen. No takedown or anything. No McAuliffe screw up or anything. If one of the Jennifers does not drop out of this race by Sunday, I can pretty much call this race a month early for Terry McAuliffe, unless the man, I don't know, pumps a pump action shotgun at both of his kneecaps. Not literally, but in terms of he has to screw up royally. He pretty much something like if the Northam blackface photo came out 2 weeks or a week before the primary in 2017. There has to be something like that for him to lose this thing. He has to screw up, or there has to be some sort of oppo that comes out that just sinks him and flips this race up on its head. And that maybe that happens. A lot of developments can happen in these races that people don't know about, and it comes out of nowhere. But that's pretty much the only scenario where Terry McAuliffe loses. Carol Foy really needed that Washington Post endorsement. The Washington Post endorsed Terry McAuliffe, and the Washington Post is kingmaker in Northern Virginia. I think if the Washington Post had endorsed Perriello, I think the race would be a lot closer. Perriello may have even won. He would have definitely won Loudon and Prince William, and not do as poorly in Fairfax than in the Beltway. I think Northam still may have won it, though. And then I think Perriello would have also, if I recall correctly, in the margins, would have won some ex-urban parts of Northern Virginia. But regardless, the Post has endorsed McAuliffe. The same Post endorsement that sunk him in 2009. So pretty much all what has to happen for there to be even a sliver of a chance for Terry McAuliffe to lose this thing is one of the Jennifers in this race has to drop out. If they really want to keep Terry McAuliffe from being the nominee, one of them has to drop out, and they have to drop out this weekend. If that doesn't happen, be able to call the race, unless, again, Terry McAuliffe screws up royally in just a legendary fashion. That's the only way he can lose. So that is pretty much it. Thank you so much for listening. We will have a podcast coming out with my favorite data guru, David Shore, coming out on Tuesday. Make sure you tune in, and thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.